Hey village! All right, today's video is gonna be a quick one unless I go on one of my like typical rants, but just wanna update you guys on some of the placement calls that I've been getting while I've been on break. Also, I feel like I need to step really far away from the camera because like my eye is swollen. I think I have like a sty. It's getting better. Yesterday, I fully looked like Quasimodo, and today I was like, you know, really wanna get this video out, really wanna share with you guys what's been happening. So I'm gonna power through. I also just ate some hot Cheetos, so my mouth is on fire. I don't know if that's gonna like help talk faster. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I've mentioned in previous videos that it's really important as a foster caregiver to give yourself built-in breaks between placements. And honestly, it's personal preference. If you wanna go back to back, if your family and you're like in a space where that's something that you can do, by all means, you know, you do you, but I think it's important if you're pouring so much into the children and families who you're supporting through this process, I would just recommend taking a little bit of a break in between to refuel, to reflect, to grieve. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that come up when you're a caregiver, whether it's foster, kinship, or otherwise. So for me, what that has looked like typically, and I think the exception would have been with Miss A, Ariana. She was with us for 18 months and I did not take an 18-month break. But typically for those shorter placements, what I like to do is for as long as the child has stayed, that's kind of how long the break is to kind of normalize, to recharge, to grieve, to kind of get back to a center. So my most recent placement was a 6-month foster teen. They moved out around the end of the year, beginning of the year. So like right after the new year, still in contact, still doing what I can to support them. But that 6-month placement, I was kind of planning on at least a 6-month placement, or sorry, at least a 6-month break. And this time it might be a little bit longer just because of the life transitions that are happening. So, you know, I'm starting a new job, going through some stuff. So might be taking a little bit more of a break. It might be the whole year, but I am open to respite and emergency placements. And that's because it's end of May and I'm open to it. I didn't say goodbye to one kid and automatically open myself up. But regardless, I communicated with my agency, hey, this is what's happening in my life. This is what's happening after this placement. And this is, you know, what I'm asking for. And I communicate that boundary. And that's something like you really do as a foster caregiver specifically, you really have to communicate your boundaries and honor those boundaries. Big tip right there. And it's taken me years to get there. And I'll talk about that even more as I talk about these placement calls. But your agency isn't gonna know what they don't know. So if you don't tell them, if you don't communicate with them, they don't know that you need a break. And their goal is to find good and loving homes for these kids while their families are going through crisis. And so they are gonna call you. They're gonna call and ask, especially if you're a good foster family. Let's have more good foster families so that agencies aren't just calling, you know, the families who are already overloaded or the ones who might not be in it for the right reasons. And not going to go into that sidebar, but we know that that is the case at times. And so it's a catch-22 because I've been in that position where I get a call and I'm like, oh, I want to say yes because I want to say yes to this kid. I know that I'd be able to support them, but also you can't help anybody else if you're not helping yourself. So take care of yourself first. The total cliche of put your oxygen mask on first totally comes into play with caregiving. So I would recommend having that open communication with your agency, with your caseworker. And to be honest, if they are not listening or they're not available for those conversations, kind of a red flag with that agency. And, you know, I would start with like, you know, if it's caseworker specific, maybe they're going through some stuff. So maybe talk to their supervisor or like take it up the line to see if maybe that caseworker needs support. Maybe they need a break, or maybe that's just how it is at the agency. And at that point, I would recommend looking at some other options because you want an agency that's going to support you, because if they're not supporting you, they most likely are not going to also be supporting the kids and the families. So anyway, back to the placement calls. So I had communicated that I was going to be on a break. I don't know if I specified how long, so I wasn't surprised when I was starting to get placement calls. And also agencies don't have great technology, and I'll talk about this a little later, just like a little soapbox moment of the need for states and honestly, maybe even at the federal level, across the country, like having software readily available for agencies to use that is going to make the placement and the matching process as smooth as possible. It's going to save caseworkers time. It's going to hopefully lead to better matches. Yeah, I guess that might be all I have to say, so I won't talk about it later. But there was only one time that I can think of that I said yes to a placement right after another one had left. It was actually within like 2 weeks, and that was because I knew the child, and the child was asking to be placed here. And so kind of more of that like foster kinship situation. But that was the only time that it was like back to back, and I absolutely do not regret it. I would say yes again, even considering everything that was happening in life. The first call I got was probably only a couple months after saying goodbye to my most recent placement. And to be honest, I don't remember any information about the child. I just remember communicating like, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm not ready. It seemed to be more of a permanent placement, meaning it wasn't respite, it wasn't a scheduled time, and it wasn't an emergency placement where they were also looking for something more longer term while the case was, you know, moving through. I believe it was a teenager. Yeah, that was one that I did say no, and just communicated, you know, hey, I don't know if it's listed there, but I am on a break right now and I wish I could help, but I'm just not in a place. The next call that I got, oh, I wish I could have said yes. Oh, I wish I could have said yes. So it was for a teen, and it was for respite. It was for a week, and it just sounded so perfect. Like respite for me, if I say yes to respite, you're kind of like that cool aunt. You're the vacation for the child. Like the grown-ups and the caregivers are most likely getting their rest or vacation or whatever the reason was for the request. But also it's kind of a break for the kid. The kid might be tired of same old, and maybe they need another adult to just listen and bond with. And especially with teenagers, respite is a lot of watching shows, eating good food, and, you know, deep conversations if you're opening it up for that. So for this one, like I said, I really wanted to say yes, but I was actively driving out of town when they called, and the respite was a little last minute. And so I wasn't going to be able to change my plans, and I don't even know if I could have changed my plans at that point. So I had to say no, unfortunately, to that one. And the third placement call that I've received over these last 4 months while I've been on a break has been for, I believe it was an emergency placement, because they were looking for placement that night, and they were unclear if it was going to be temporary or just while they were looking for a more longer term solution. And this is one where I think I need to communicate with my agency, like update my child characteristics. You'll have like a form that you fill out that says your age ranges, genders, behaviors, medical conditions, like different characteristics that a child might have that you are either comfortable, I wouldn't even say comfortable, if you're able to support those. You know, sometimes it's not out of judgment or anything like that. Like for me at this point, I'm still mainly just taking foster teen females or those identifying in the LGBTQ plus community. Those are, like, I wouldn't say no automatically to a teenage boy. Nothing is ever like an automatic no. I would always have a conversation and try to learn more. But that's just kind of like my niche. So for this, it was, I want to say, it was like an 8-year-old boy. He actually shared my birthday because it was coming up. And just because of the age of Darcy right now, I'm trying to keep kids out of my kids' age ranges. And this is probably a different video to talk about birth order, because I don't agree with birth order. It doesn't bother my family. But some people are like super strict about keeping birth order. So I'll talk about that in a different video. But for me, what I have found is that my family does best when we do have teenagers and my kids are younger. When I take in placements who are around that school age that my kids are, there tends to be more heightened emotions, a lot more arguments, disagreements, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for us. So that's why I try to keep to like a little bit of the older kids. So for this placement call, I did say no pretty much right off the bat. And I explained why. I explained that, you know, with my daughter being 8, that I try to keep like a gap because we've ran into just some issues in that regard. So those are the 3 calls that I've gotten. My county is a little slower with placement, which isn't a bad thing. And so I'm hoping in the near future it'll work out where my schedule allows for it, and the placement call is for a child that I can support. But so far that's where I'm at. So no new placements in these last 5 months since saying goodbye to my previous one. And I am open to emergency and respite. The longer term placements, I'm still just cautious of right now. All right, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.